The arrogant billionaire who demanded the farmer's daughter to keep a promise. Why would a farmer's daughter agree to marry the arrogant billionaire threatening to take her family's land? You won't believe the shocking secret he was hiding about why he needed the farm and the dangerous conspiracy they uncovered together, turning their fake arrangement into a real fight for survival. Like, subscribe, and listen now for the full, captivating story. The terms were clear, MS. Hartfield. Payment in full by the first of the month, or the property reverts to the lender. That lender, Jackson Thorne said, his voice smooth as polished steel, cutting through the cozy, slightly worn atmosphere of the Hartfield farmhouse living room, is me. He leaned back in the floral armchair that looked comically small beneath his expensive suit, a smirk playing on his lips. Outside the window, the verdant fields of Willow Creek Farm stretched towards the horizon, bathed in the golden late-afternoon light land the Hartfield family had worked for generations. Eliza Hartfield, standing beside her older sister Chloe near the stone hearth, felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. Thorne's arrogance was a physical presence in the room, sucking the warmth out. They'd known this day might come the disastrous harvest last fall. The subsequent bank loan sold off to Thorne's Development Corporation, but facing him now, seeing the undisguised avarice in his sharp blue eyes, made the threat terrifyingly real. Chloe visibly trembled, clutching a sheaf of overdue bills. "Mr. Thorne," Chloe began, her voice unsteady. "We just need a little more time. The new irrigation system is helping. The apple orchard looks promising this year." "Time is money, ladies," Thorne interrupted dismissively. "And sentiment doesn't pay mortgages. This land is vastly undervalued as a simple farm. Its real potential lies in development." He gestured vaguely towards the window. "I have plans." Desperation clawed at Eliza. Losing the farm wasn't just losing land. It was losing their history, their identity, everything their parents and grandparents had poured their lives into. Thinking fast, fueled by a surge of protective instinct, she stepped forward, meeting Thorne's cold gaze with a steady one of her own. An idea, wild and improbable, leaped into her mind. "There might be another way," Eliza said, her voice surprisingly firm, ignoring Chloe's startled gasp beside her. "A different kind of collateral." Thorne raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "I assure you, Miss Hartfield, your family heirlooms won't cover the debt." "Not heirlooms." Eliza took a deep breath, the words feeling alien and reckless on her tongue. "Me. A temporary arrangement. A marriage." The proposal hung in the air, shocking even herself. Marry this cold, ruthless man to save her home? The absurdity, the sheer desperation of it, made the room spin. Thorne stared at her, momentarily speechless, his smirk replaced by stunned silence. What had she just done? Willow Creek Farm wasn't just a collection of fields and barns. It was the soul of the small, unincorporated township that shared its name. For over a century, the Hartfield family had cultivated its fertile soil, their lives interwoven with the rhythms of planting and harvest, drought and bounty. The farm, nestled in a picturesque valley, was known for its sweet corn, crisp apples, and the sturdy, honest work ethic of its owners. But recent years have been hard. A series of bad weather years, coupled with rising operational costs and her father's lingering medical bills before his passing, had pushed the farm deep into debt. Now Eliza, 26, and her older sister Chloe, 30, were fighting tooth and nail to keep it afloat after their parents were gone. Eliza was the heart of the farm, practical, resilient, with an innate understanding of the land and a surprising aptitude for mechanics, keeping the aging farm equipment running through sheer ingenuity and stubbornness. Her hands bore the calluses of hard labor, but her eyes held a spark of fierce intelligence and unwavering loyalty. Chloe, more pragmatic and business-minded, managed the precarious finances, dealt with suppliers, and worried constantly about the future. They were a team, bound by love for each other and the land they refused to surrender. The surrounding community, while generally supportive in spirit, offered little tangible help. Most were small farmers themselves, struggling with the same economic pressures. Into this world of weathered barns and tight margins stepped Jackson Thorne, 38, a man who seemed forged from steel and ambition. A self-made billionaire who had clawed his way up from poverty, Thorne now headed Thorne Development, a behemoth known for its aggressive acquisition of undervalued land and conversion into luxury resorts, golf courses, and exclusive gated communities. He operated primarily from a gleaming high-rise in the nearest major city, viewing rural landscapes not with appreciation, but as blank canvases for profit. He was notorious for his ruthlessness, his impatience, and his apparent lack of sentimentality. Whispers followed him about hostile takeovers, broken partnerships, and a personal life kept deliberately opaque, though it was known he was unmarried and fiercely private. He had recently bought up a portfolio of distressed agricultural loans, including the Hartfields, seeing it as a strategic move to gain control of key properties in areas ripe for upscale development, like the picturesque Willow Creek Valley. Lurking in the background, an even bigger predator was Marcus Vance, head of the monolithic Blackthorn Enterprises. Vance and Thorne were rivals, often circling the same lucrative deals. Vance was known for even more shadowy tactics, rumored to use coercion and political influence to achieve his aims. While Thorne operated with cold, hard-nosed business logic, Vance seemed driven by a more sinister greed, representing a different, perhaps more dangerous, threat on the horizon, though his interest in Willow Creek remained, for the moment, unclear. Jackson Thorne, focused on his own immediate prize, saw Willow Creek Farm simply as leverage, a means to an end, utterly unprepared for the tenacious spirit of the young woman who refused to let it go without a fight. The official foreclosure notice arrived via certified mail, cold and impersonal, stripping away any lingering hope for a last-minute reprieve. 30 days. Pay the outstanding $350,000 loan in full, plus accrued interest and fees, or vacate the property. Willow Creek Farm would be put up for auction, an auction Jackson Thorne would undoubtedly dominate. Chloe stared at the notice, tears welling in her eyes. "It's over, Eliza," she whispered, sinking onto a kitchen chair. "There's no way. We've tapped every resource, tried every local lender. Nobody will touch us with Thorne holding the primary note." Eliza felt a wave of despair wash over her, quickly followed by a surge of defiant anger. Give up? Walk away from the only home she'd ever known, the legacy her parents had entrusted to them? Unthinkable. There had to be another way. She spent a sleepless night researching Jackson Thorne, diving deep into business articles, gossip columns, financial reports, anything she could find online. She discovered his impoverished upbringing, his obsessive drive for success and control, and, buried in a society piece, a mention of his desire to cultivate a more respectable, perhaps even philanthropic, public image to aid a potential bid for a prestigious international development project. An idea sparked desperate, unconventional, humiliating, but maybe, just maybe, possible. The next afternoon, Eliza drove her dusty pickup truck into the city, dressed not in her usual work jeans, but in the best dress she owned, feeling entirely out of place as she walked into the opulent lobby of Thorne Development. After bluffing her way past a skeptical receptionist, She found herself standing before Jackson Thorne in his minimalist, high-floor office overlooking the sprawling city. He looked up from his desk, surprise flickering briefly in his cold eyes before settling back into guarded amusement. MS. Hartfield, to what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? Come to hand over the keys early. No, Eliza said, her voice steadier than she felt. I came to offer you a deal. A proposition. Thorne leaned back, intrigued. I'm listening. You want Willow Creek Farm, Eliza stated baldly. But taking it by force won't help the image you're trying to cultivate for your international bid. Foreclosing on a struggling family farm? Bad press. She saw a flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes and pressed on. I, on the other hand, represent everything you lack: publicly roots, community connection, down-to-earth appeal. I can help you craft that image. And how do you propose to do that? He asked, a skeptical smile playing on his lips. Eliza took a deep breath. Marry me. A temporary, contractual marriage. 6 months. I'll be the devoted, supportive wife at your public events, charter business partners, help you launch that fake charity initiative you need for PR. I'll give you the image of a grounded family man. She paused, letting the audacious proposal hang in the air. In return, you put the foreclosure on hold. You provide a separate, modest fund strictly for essential farm improvements, with oversight to give us a fighting chance to become profitable again. At the end of 6 months, the contract ends. If the farm is viable, we renegotiate the loan on fair terms. If not, she swallowed hard, then you get the farm without the negative publicity. It's a business deal, Mr. Thorne. Mutually beneficial. Jackson stared at her, calculating. The audacity was breathtaking, but the logic, it had a certain ruthless appeal. A wife, even a temporary one, could indeed soften his image, grease the wheels for the international project. And the risk seemed minimal. Strictly business? He confirmed, his eyes narrowed. No me si emotional entanglements. Strictly business, Eliza echoed, meeting his gaze, ignoring the churning in her stomach. He considered it for another long moment. Then a slow, cold smile spread across his face. All right, MS. Hartfield, you have yourself a deal. Have her lawyer contact mine. We'll draw up the contract. Eliza's initial goal, save the farm, had led her down an unimaginable path. Her reaction was a dizzying mix of relief that she'd bought time and sheer terror at what she had just agreed to. The contract, drafted by teams of high-powered lawyers, was pages long, ironclad, and utterly devoid of sentiment. 6 months. Eliza would reside in a guest suite in Jackson's palatial city penthouse apartment. She would attend designated corporate and social events, adhering to a strict dress code and behavioral guidelines, project warmth, and quiet support. She would be available for curated photo opportunities. All communications regarding the farm improvements, funded by a separate escrow account managed by Jackson's firm, were to be handled through Chloe. Confidentiality was absolute. Breach would result in immediate foreclosure and potential financial penalties. No emotional involvement. No personal expectations. Strictly business. Moving into Jackson's penthouse felt like stepping onto another planet. Gleaming surfaces, abstract art, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing a city that felt cold and indifferent. It was the antithesis of the warm, lived-in clutter of the farmhouse. Jackson himself remained distant, often communicating through his terse assistant. When they were together at obligatory events, he played the part of the attentive fiancé. They agreed a short engagement period followed by the marriage was more believable, but his compliments felt rehearsed, his hand on her arm possessive rather than affectionate. In front of his business associates, Jackson often seemed to take a perverse pleasure in highlighting Eliza's background, introducing her with comments like, "Meet Eliza, my fiancée. Quite a change from chasing chickens, isn't it, darling?" Or mocking her unfamiliarity with fine wines or opera. Each remark felt like a small barb, reminding her of her place in his world, a temporary asset, a farm girl playing dress-up. Eliza endured it with clenched teeth and outward composure, reminding herself why she was there. She spent her days communicating with Chloe about the farm, ordering drought-resistant seeds, scheduling repairs for the tractor, using her own expertise via video calls, arranging for contracted help with the orchard harvest, all funded by the escrow account Jackson had established. Chloe, back at Willow Creek, managed the on-the-ground operations with fierce determination, dealing with skeptical neighbors who whispered about Eliza selling out or running off with a rich city man. She also fielded occasional calls from Daniel Shapiro, the young reporter for the county newspaper, who was doing a follow-up piece on the struggles of local farms after the previous bad harvest. Daniel seemed genuinely interested in Willow Creek's fate and sympathetic to the Hartfield's plight, though Chloe remained cautious about revealing too much. Life in the city was isolating for Eliza. She missed the feel of soil under her fingernails, the smell of rain on hay, the easy camaraderie with Chloe. She attended galas feeling like an imposter, smiling politely while Jackson networked ruthlessly. She tried to engage him in conversation during their rare, quiet moments at the penthouse, asking about his business, his life, but he remained guarded, deflecting personal questions with curt responses or cynical remarks about the transactional nature of all relationships. The complications were mounting. Maintaining the facade was exhausting. Jackson's persistent condescension grated on her nerves. Worries about the farm, despite the influx of funds, gnawed at her. Could they really turn things around in just 6 months? And a deeper, more troubling complication began to surface. Fleeting moments where Jackson's icy exterior seemed to crack, revealing a flicker of something else: loneliness? Regret? Moments he quickly masked, leaving Eliza confused and unsettled. The lines of their strictly business arrangement felt subtly, troublingly, in danger of blurring, adding another layer of risk to her already precarious gamble. The shift began unexpectedly, during a high-profile charity gala intended to boost Jackson's philanthropic image, a key part of Eliza's contractual duties. Jackson's PR team had prepared a bland, statistics-filled speech for Eliza to deliver about the importance of corporate giving. Standing at the podium, facing a sea of wealthy, elegantly dressed patrons, the prepared words felt hollow, false. Looking out at the indifferent faces, Eliza thought of Willow Creek, of Chloe struggling with a harvest, of the generations who had poured their sweat into that land. On impulse, she set aside the prepared remarks. "Corporate giving is important," she began, her voice clear and steady, surprising herself with her sudden confidence. "But true value isn't always measured in dollars donated or tax write-offs." She then spoke, simply and passionately, about Willow Creek Farm. She described the scent of apple blossoms in spring, the resilience of farmers facing unpredictable weather, the joy of a community coming together for a barn raising, the importance of preserving land that nourishes not just bodies, but souls. She spoke of heritage, hard work, and the quiet dignity of rural life. She didn't mention her own struggles, but painted a vivid picture of the world Jackson Thorne seemed determined to pave over. A hush fell over the usually boisterous ballroom. When she finished, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then genuine, sustained applause erupted. Donors, moved by her unexpected authenticity, approached her afterward, asking questions about sustainable farming, about supporting rural communities. Jackson watched from the side, his expression unreadable, but Eliza saw him give a single, almost imperceptible nod of approval before his usual mask of cool detachment snapped back into place. Later that week, unable to sleep in the sterile quiet of the penthouse, Eliza found Jackson in his vast home office, staring out at the glittering city skyline, a glass of expensive whiskey untouched beside him. The cold facade seemed to have slipped. He looked tired, almost lost. "Can't sleep?" Eliza asked softly from the doorway. He startled slightly, then nodded curtly. "Just thinking." "About?" she prompted gently, emboldened by her success at the gala. "About paving over more farmland?" He flinched, turning from the window. "It's just business, Eliza. Land is an asset." "Is that all it is?" she challenged quietly. "My family has poured generations of sweat and love into Willow Creek. It's not just an asset, it's everything. Why do you need our farms so badly, Jackson? What are you really chasing?" Perhaps it was the late hour, the whiskey, or Eliza's direct, unvarnished question. For the first time, Jackson let the mask drop completely. He spoke haltingly about his childhood, growing up dirt poor, the shame, the relentless hunger for security, the belief instilled early on that money was the only shield, the only measure of worth. "I swore I'd never be powerless again," he admitted, his voice raw. "Owning things, controlling things that felt like safety." Eliza listened, not with judgment, but with unexpected empathy. "I understand wanting security, Jackson," she said softly. "But power based on taking things from others, it hollows you out. It doesn't build anything real." She spoke about the farm again, not as collateral, but as home. Her words seemed to land differently this time. He didn't scoff or deflect. He just looked at her, a flicker of profound loneliness in his eyes. This conversation, stripped of pretense, was the turning point. Jackson began to see Eliza not as a pawn or a farm girl, but as a person of strength and integrity, representing values he had long suppressed. He started questioning his own relentless drive, the hollowness of his acquisitions. Though he maintained his gruff exterior, subtle changes began. He started asking genuine questions about the farm's progress, sent top agricultural consultants, claiming it was to protect his investment, and stopped making condescending remarks. The strictly business arrangement was irrevocably compromised by the intrusion of genuine human connection and nascent respect. Eliza realized saving the farm might now involve saving the man who threatened it. The shift in Jackson was subtle but undeniable. He became less demanding, occasionally joining Eliza for quiet dinners at the penthouse instead of obligatory public appearances. He listened, really listened, when she spoke about the farm, asking intelligent questions about crop rotation and soil health. He even offered surprisingly insightful advice on negotiating better terms with a grain distributor, gleaned from his own complex business dealings. The antagonism faded, replaced by a tentative, awkward truce, bordering on something akin to friendship. Eliza found herself conflicted. She saw glimpses of the vulnerable boy beneath the ruthless billionaire, felt a growing empathy, even attraction. But the contract, the ticking clock, the fundamental power imbalance remained. Was his change genuine, or just another calculated move? She pushed her confusing feelings aside, focusing on the farm's progress. Thanks to the new equipment and expert advice, courtesy of Jackson's investment protection, the harvest outlook was improving significantly. Generating enough profit to renegotiate the loan within the 6-month window suddenly seemed achievable. Her cautious optimism was shattered during a weekend visit back to Willow Creek. While walking the property line with Chloe to inspect a newly installed solar-powered irrigation pump, Eliza noticed tire tracks' heavy treads, not from their farm equipment, leading toward the secluded wooded area on the edge of their land, near the border with a parcel recently acquired by an anonymous LLC. Later, near the barn, Chloe found a discarded invoice for high-grade concrete, bearing the name of an unfamiliar out-of-state construction company. It didn't make sense. Alarm bells ringing. Eliza initially suspected Jackson. Was he already planning construction, breaking their agreement? Was his recent kindness a facade? Heart sinking. She prepared to confront him upon her return to the city. But Chloe, ever practical, urged caution. Let's find out more first, Eliza. This doesn't feel like Jackson style. Not anymore. Chloe did some digging, checking county records for the LLC that owned the adjacent land, cross-referencing the construction company. She hit a wall: shell corporations. Eliza knew who to call. Daniel Shapiro, the local journalist, had been impressed by Eliza's gala speech, which had made regional news, and had kept in touch, genuinely interested in the farm's turnaround story. Trusting his discretion, Eliza shared her suspicions and the strange invoice. Daniel, possessing investigative skills honed by covering local politics and business, started digging into the construction company and the LLC. Within days, Daniel uncovered the link. The shell corporations traced back not to Jackson Thorne, but to Blackthorn Enterprises, the company run by Jackson's notorious rival, Marcus Vance. Daniel also, through a source cultivated during previous investigations into Vance's questionable dealings, obtained copies of internal Blackthorn memos outlining plans for a large-scale, high-stakes casino development illegal under current county zoning centered precisely on the Willow Creek Valley, requiring multiple parcels, including the Hartfield farm and adjacent Thorne-owned land. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Vance wasn't just a competitor. He was actively working to acquire the land through underhanded means, likely using the construction deliveries to begin unauthorized site prep. But how did this connect to Jackson? Daniel, pushing his source further, or perhaps employing some ethically gray digital sleuthing he didn't fully disclose, unearthed fragments of communication, encrypted emails between Vance and Jackson Thorne from before Eliza's proposal. The messages revealed Vance pressuring Jackson, leveraging a significant past debt Jackson owed him, or some other form of damaging leverage, to force Jackson to acquire the Hartfield loan and foreclose, thereby delivering the key parcel for Vance's casino project. Call on the Hartfield note. Thorne, deliver the farm. Your own slate gets wiped clean. Fail, and Blackthorn ensures your international bid crashes and burns. One message read. Eliza felt sick. Jackson wasn't the primary villain. He was a pawn, trapped by his own past dealings with a far more ruthless player. She returned to the city and confronted Jackson directly, laying out the invoices, the Blackthorn connection, the fragments of emails Daniel had found. Jackson didn't deny it. He looked defeated, ashamed. Yes, he confessed, his voice heavy. Vance backed one of my early, risky developments years ago. I owe him big time. He called in the marker, demanding I secure the Hartfield land for his project. He threatened to expose things, ruin deals I have pending if I refused. He looked at Eliza, his eyes filled with conflict. At first, it was just business. Secure the land, pay off Vance. But then you made your offer. And getting to know you, seeing the farm, I don't want to destroy it, Eliza. But Vance is threatening scorched earth if I back out now. The regrouping was immediate. Eliza, Jackson, Chloe, and Daniel Shapiro formed an unlikely alliance. Their goal was no longer just saving the farm or navigating a fake marriage. It was exposing Marcus Vance's illegal casino plot and freeing Jackson from his rival's coercive grip. They needed a plan, and they needed to act fast before Vance realized Jackson was no longer playing his game. The alliance worked with quiet urgency. Jackson, feeding misinformation to Marcus Vance to buy time, used his insider knowledge to detail Vance's likely strategies and potential pressure points. Daniel Shapiro worked his journalistic sources, trying to find former Blackthorn employees or local officials willing to speak, even off the record, about Vance's methods. Chloe meticulously documented the farm's improvements and gathered testimonials from neighbors about the importance of Willow Creek Farm to the community's character, building a case for its preservation beyond just the Hartfield family's claim. Their biggest challenge was obtaining irrefutable proof of Vance's illegal casino plans and his coercion of Jackson that would stand up legally and publicly. The email fragments Daniel had found were suggestive, but potentially deniable. They needed something more concrete. Jackson, risking Vance's wrath, suggested a dangerous gambit. He knew Vance was overly confident, prone to boasting when he thought he held all the cards. Jackson proposed arranging a meeting with Vance, ostensibly to finalize the Hartfield foreclosure strategy, while secretly recording the conversation. Eliza strongly objected, fearing for Jackson's safety, but he insisted it was the only way to get definitive proof quickly. "He thinks he owns me, Eliza," Jackson argued. "He'll talk freely. It's a risk I have to take to fix the mess I helped create." Reluctantly, Eliza agreed. Robert's security team fitted Jackson with state-of-the-art, undetectable recording equipment. The meeting was set at a neutral location, a private room, in an upscale city restaurant. Jackson went in alone, while Eliza and Daniel waited anxiously nearby, monitoring the audio feed relayed wirelessly. The conversation started as expected, Vance gloating, outlining the final steps to pressure Mark Sullivan, owner of the diner in the previous story error and original prompt, should be Hartfield's/Jackson, discussing payoffs to county officials to smooth zoning changes for the casino. Then, Jackson, feigning reluctance, questioned the casino's legality and the ethics of ruining the Hartfields. Vance laughed dismissively. "Ethics? Thorne, don't make me laugh. Money is the only ethic. As for the Hartfields, they're insignificant. That farm is just dirt waiting to be turned into gold. Your job was to deliver it. My leverage ensures you do. Remember our agreement? Remember who pulled you out of that hole 5 years ago? Cross me, and I bury you and your little farmer fiancé." Vance explicitly detailed the threats he held over Jackson, confirming the coercion and the illegal nature of his casino plans on tape. Jackson ended the meeting quickly, rejoining Eliza and Daniel, the recording secured. They finally had the smoking gun. They planned to reveal carefully the upcoming Willow Creek community meeting, originally scheduled by the council, likely influenced by Vance, to discuss economic development opportunities, the perfect venue to expose Vance's actual plans. Daniel Shapiro alerted trusted contacts at state-level media and regulatory agencies, like the Gaming Control Board. Chloe prepared a presentation showcasing the farm's viability and community importance. The dark night came just before the meeting. Vance, perhaps sensing Jackson's wavering or getting tipped off by a paid informant, made a final, vicious move. He anonymously leaked details of Eliza and Jackson's marriage contract to a notorious city gossip blogger, framing Eliza as a gold digger who trapped a billionaire and Jackson as a fool being played. The story exploded online just hours before the community meeting, designed to discredit them both, ruin Jackson's reputation, and paint their fight for the farm as a cynical sham. Eliza and Jackson were reeling, exposed and vulnerable, facing not just Vance, but public humiliation. Could they still go through with the confrontation, knowing their own uncomfortable truth was now public fodder? Their commitment to each other and to saving Willow Creek faced its ultimate test. The Willow Creek Community Hall was packed, buzzing with gossip fueled by the leaked marriage contract story. Marcus Vance sat near the front with several associates, looking supremely confident, clearly believing he had successfully neutralized his opposition. Eliza and Jackson entered together, heads held high despite the whispers and stares, taking seats alongside Chloe and Daniel Shapiro. The meeting began, dominated initially by Vance's slick presentation about bringing prosperity and jobs through his proposed development details still vague, casino unmentioned. When the floor opened for community input, Eliza walked calmly to the microphone. "My name is Eliza Hartfield," she began, her voice clear and strong, silencing the room. "And yes, the rumors are true. Jackson Thorne and I entered into a marriage contract 6 months ago." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vance smirked. "I proposed it," Eliza continued, "as a desperate measure to save my family's farm from foreclosure by Mr. Thorne, who was being pressured by the man truly seeking to destroy this valley, Marcus Vance." She systematically laid out the evidence, the suspicious invoices, the documents showing Vance's shell companies. Daniel Shapiro followed, presenting the recovered emails detailing Vance's coercion of Jackson. Then, Jackson Thorne stood beside Eliza. "What started as a contract," he said, his voice resonating with newfound humility and conviction, "became something else. Ms. Hartfield showed me the value of this land. This community values Mr. Vance seeks only to exploit." He faced Vance directly. "Your leverage over me ends tonight." He then played the crystal-clear audio recording of his meeting with Vance, the plotting, the threats, the confirmation of the illegal casino plan, the utter contempt for Willow Creek and its residents. The crowd listened, stunned into silence, then erupted in outrage. Vance leaped up, shouting, "Lies! Edited tapes! This is a setup by a bankrupt farmer and a desperate fool." "Is it Mr. Vance?" called out a weathered farmer from the back, one of the people Maggie Chun, error in thought, should be Chloe/Daniel's research, had found evidence about previously. "Because you tried similar tactics on me 5 years ago." Others began to murmur agreement, finding courage in numbers. At that moment, state police officers and agents from the Gaming Control Board, alerted by Daniel and Jackson's lawyers, entered the hall. They approached a stunned Marcus Vance. "Mr. Vance," the lead officer stated calmly, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted bribery, and extortion." As Vance was led away, protesting vehemently, the community hall exploded in cheers and applause, not just for the downfall of a predator, but for the unexpected alliance that had saved their valley. Jackson reached for Eliza's hand, their eyes meeting in shared relief and understanding. Marcus Vance's arrest and subsequent conviction on multiple charges effectively ended his threat to Willow Creek. His assets were frozen, Blackthorn Enterprises faced intense legal scrutiny, and the illegal casino project vanished like smoke. The exposure of his methods also triggered investigations into other potentially fraudulent land deals across the state. With the threat gone and the truth revealed, the cloud of scandal surrounding Eliza and Jackson began to dissipate, replaced by grudging respect and eventually genuine appreciation within the Willow Creek community. Jackson formally and publicly canceled the Hartfield mortgage, signing the deed over to Eliza and Chloe free and clear. The 6-month contract expired. Standing on the porch of the farmhouse where her audacious proposal had first been made, Jackson looked at Eliza, no trace of his former arrogance remaining. "The contract is over, Eliza," he said quietly, "but I find myself unwilling to leave. If you'll have me not as part of a deal, but for real." Eliza, who had seen his transformation, who had found herself falling for the man beneath the billionaire facade, smiled, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I think Willow Creek is growing on you, Jackson Thorne." she replied, taking his hand. And yes, I'll have you. They chose a life that blended their two worlds. Jackson maintained his business empire but spent significantly more time at Willow Creek, investing not just money but his own effort into the farm and the community. Together, they established the Willow Creek Legacy Foundation, managed by the capable Chloe Hartfield, funding sustainable agriculture initiatives, providing scholarships for local youth, with Daniel Shapiro advising on communications, and ensuring the valley remained vibrant and protected from predatory development. Months later, during the annual Willow Creek Harvest Festival held on the Hartfield farm, Eliza and Jackson stood watching children bob for apples near the orchard. Chloe bustled by, organizing volunteers. Daniel Shapiro was interviewing local farmers for a positive story about the town's resilience. You know, Jackson murmured, slipping his arm around Eliza's waist, that ruthless billionaire wasn't entirely wrong about one thing. Oh, Eliza asked, leaning into him. This place, he said, looking around at the bustling farm, the laughing families, then down at her, his eyes filled with warmth, really is gold. Not the cold, hard currency he once chased, but the rich, enduring value of community, connection, and a love unexpectedly found.